Hari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada एवं विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रत्यक्ष अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। एवं विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रत्यक्ष अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। एवं विष्णुपाद श्रीलकौर किशोरदास बाबू महाराज की जय। एवं विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद श्री भक्तिवेदांत ठाकुर की जय। एवं विष्णुपाद वैष्णव साहब श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबू महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नमाचार्य श्री हरदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कोशि कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपिना श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री गौरांगी बेंगलोरीश्वर भगवान की जय। श्री मायपुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। गंगामयी की जय। यमुनामयी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन मत हमारे गुरु अंद की जय। समाज भक्तवृंद की जय। गौरव प्रेमानंदे हरि की बोल। All glories to the assembled ones. All glories to the assembled ones. All glories to the assembled ones. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Ashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Friday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, chapter 33, text 8 to 10. First we read text number 8. Tam tvam aham brahma param pumamsham pratyak srotasi atmani samvibhabhyam swatejasa dashtat guna pravaham vande vishnum kapilam vedagarbham. Tam tvam aham brahma param pumamsham pratyak srotasi atmani samvibhavyam swatejasa dashtat guna pravaham vande vishnum kapilam vedagarbham. Tam tvam aham brahma param pumamsam pratyak srotasya atmanis sambibhavyam svatejasa dvashta guna pravaham vande vishnum kapilam vedagarbham. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I believe, my Lord, that you are Lord Vishnu himself under the name of Kapila, and you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Brahman. The saints and sages, being freed from all the disturbances of the senses and mind, meditate upon you, for by your mercy only one can become free from the clutches of the three modes of material nature. At the time of dissolution, all the Vedas are sustained in you only. Upper syllable of Bhagavad. Devahuti, the mother of Kapila, instead of prolonging her prayers, summarized that Lord Kapila was none other than Vishnu, and that since she was a woman, it was not possible for her to worship him properly simply by prayer. It was her intention that the Lord be satisfied. The word pratyak is significant. In yogic practice, the 8 divisions are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Pratyahara means to wind up the activities of the senses. The level of realization of the Supreme Lord is evidenced by Devahuti is possible when one is able to withdraw the senses from material activities. When one is engaged in devotional service, there is no scope for his senses to be engaged otherwise. In such full Krishna consciousness, one can understand the Supreme Lord as he is. Text number 9. Maitreya Uvacha Idito Bhagavan Evam Kapilakyah Parapuman Vacha Viklavayetyah Mataram Matar Vatsalaha. Translation to the Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila, satisfied by the words of his mother, towards whom he was very affectionate, replied with gravity, since the Lord is all perfect, his exhibition of affection for his mother was also complete. After hearing the words of his mother, he most respectfully, with due gravity and good manners, replied. Text number 10. Kapiluvacha Margenanena Mataste Susebye Noditena Me Astitena Param Kastam Achirad Avarotsasi. Translation The personality of God had said, My dear mother, the path of self-realization which I have already instructed to you is very easy. You can execute this system without difficulty, and by following it, you shall very soon be liberated even within your present body. Devotional service is so perfect that simply by following the rules and regulations and executing them under the directions of the spiritual master, one is liberated, as it is said herein, from the clutches of Maya, even in this body. In other yogic process or in empirical philosophical speculation, one is never certain whether or not he is at the perfectional stage. But in the discharge of devotional service, if one has unflinching faith in the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master and follows the rules and regulations, he is sure to be liberated, even within this present body. Srila Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu has also confirmed this. Iha Yasya Harer Dasya, regardless of where he is situated, anyone whose only aim is to serve the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master is called Jivana Mukta, or one who is liberated even within his material body. Sometimes doubts arise in the minds of neophytes about whether or not the spiritual master is liberated, and sometimes neophytes are doubtful about the bodily affairs of the spiritual master. The point of liberation, however, is not to see the bodily symptoms of the spiritual master. One has to see the spiritual symptoms of the spiritual master. Jivan Mukta means that even though one is in the material body, there are still some material necessities. Since the body is material, because one is fully situated in the service of the Lord, he should be understood to be liberated. Liberation entails being situated in one's own position. That is the definition of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Muktir Swarupena Vyavastitihi. The Swarupa or actual identity of the living entity is described by Lord Chaitanya, Jivera Swarupa Hai Krishna Nityadasa. The real identity of the living entity is that he is eternally a servitor of the Supreme Lord. If someone is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord, he is to be understood as liberated. One must understand whether or not he is liberated by his activities in devotional service, not by other symptoms. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Ananjaya Shalakya Chakshurmiltamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamatyam Dadati Swapadadikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sridhapatakamadam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakarjatam Sagana Raghunathanitam Tam Siji Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha Ye Krishna Karana Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpade Bhoksha Ukakanta Radha Kantan Moste Taptaganchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Ushabanishte Devi Panamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarubhisya Kripasindhupe Evacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवशांति गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मोहं करोति वाचालं संस्पंगं लंघयते गिरिमेत्कपातमहं शीघ्रं दैतार्णं परमानन्दमाधवं श्री चैतन्य कृष्ण। हरे कृष्णा। So here the Devahuti is telling Lord Kapila that you are the supreme personality of Godhead yourself, and great sages and saints, they become free from the disturbance of senses and mind by the mercy of the Lord only. And this is the important point in the sloka number 8, and the Vedas are sustaining him. So the description of the personality of Godhead is given in the scriptures, that so we come to understand someone as the supreme personality of Godhead from Sadhu, Shastra and Guru. Mother Devahuti is the mother of Lord Kapila himself, so she could understand that he is the Supreme Lord himself. Now, by personal endeavor, it is said that one can go even near the Lord, but without the Lord's mercy, one cannot reach the ultimate point. So Lord's mercy is required to understand him. Lord is present as the all-pervading super soul, even within our heart, but still we are not able to see him or even recognize him. What to talk about small little things, like we try to see small things like through a microscope, etc. But the Lord cannot be seen or understood by such micro level means. Lord has to be understood by the mercy of the Lord himself, because the Lord's body is not material, it's a spiritual body. Unlike we have a material body, the Lord's body is Satchidananda Vigraha. So people try to practice yoga, which is mechanical means, is not wrong, but the understanding is wrong, because nowadays the yoga is promoted as a physical exercise. It is not so. Yoga is a means to understand or meditate upon the four-handed form of the Lord who is situated in our heart as Paramatma. So various processes are described in the yoga system itself, the Patanjali yoga system, Yama, Niyama, which is mentioned, the Prabhupada also, Srila Prabhupada mentions. But ultimately, the point is that pratyahara means to wind up the activities of the senses. Our senses and our mind are always disturbing us in every respect. So, in order to control the senses and the mind, the Eightfold Yoga system is recommended. But in Kali Yuga, practically it is not possible to focus on that. So that is why it is mentioned that one should try to engage in devotional service. When one is engaged in devotional service, that there is no question of trying to engage ourselves in others. In Kali Yuga, particularly, devotional Bhakti Yoga is the only one and easy way to practice by which one can control his senses and also his mind. It is said that once Ravana, he tried to kill Narad Muni, but Narad Muni had a spiritual body. So irrespective of whatever it is, he couldn't do anything. So this is an example how devotees, pure devotees also have a spiritual body, and then no harm could be done to their body. So, but in the material world, materialistic people generally, even the material world, it is said that material people generally reveal their secrets to only someone who is very, very close. So what to talk about spiritual science, which is more subtle in nature. So the modes of material nature is such that he keeps binding a person into this material world through his karma and swabhava by nature. Srila Prabhupada always gives an example of 3 into 3 is equal to 9. And these three is goodness, passion, and ignorance, the three modes. Again, 9 into 9 is equal to 81, because no mode is fully complete. Goodness might also have certain amount of passion. There is always a mixture of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So all these three modes continue to multiply and so forth. A living entity is entangled in this material world. So, but even the mode of goodness, for example, in today's condition, a person may be very much situated in the mode of goodness. Maybe he gives a lot in charity and etc. But ultimately, he has got a goal in his life that by giving in charity, he wants to become popular. No one does it just simply for the sake of doing it. Ultimately, he has a goal that either my name should become very popular in the public or something like that. Some goal he has got with which he is doing. So that is why even mode of goodness is not very pure. But devotional service is such that it frees one from the material nature automatically by one starting to perform devotional service. May not be immediately, but over a period of time, definitely one can realize that, which is mentioned in the 10th sloka also. Prahlad Maharaj in his teachings to his classmates in the 7th canto very nicely says that neither the three modes of material nature nor the predominating deities controlling these three modes, nor the five gross elements, nor the mind, nor the demigods, nor the human beings can understand your lordships, for they are all subjected to birth and annihilation. Considering this, the spiritually advanced have taken to devotional service. Such wise men hardly bother for Vedic study. Instead, they engage in practical devotional service. So, one who is wise, who is intelligent in this Kali Yuga, he does not try to control his mind or senses artificially, because this body is itself subject to birth and destruction. So one who is really intelligent or spiritually advanced, he takes up the path of devotional service. He is not concerned even about the deep study of the Vedas, etc. So one has to engage in practical devotional service. If we look at Lord Brahma, which is mentioned as an example, which is also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma wanted to create, so he performed tapasya, penance for many years, thousands of years. But then, after he performed tapasya, he saw the Lord himself on a personal basis. And then he glorifies the Lord that you are the only knowable object, and how unfortunate it is that living entities like us are unable to know you or see you. Then he glorifies the Lord in many verses. And he prays to the Lord, please be merciful to me so that I may be empowered to create, for I am also one of the surrendered souls unto you. I pray that I may not be materially affected by my work so that I may be able to give up my false prestige of being the creator. That means Brahma is a creator, secondary creator. Lord creates, Lord is the primary creator and Brahma is the secondary creator. And here Lord Brahma prays that he is asking for the Lord's mercy so that he may be empowered to create and he may not be affected by the works by which Brahma is able to create, and at the same time, he does not carry a false prestige of being a creator. That means whenever we do anything in this material world, we come to the position that we come to understand that because of me, I'm able to do this. Because of this, I did this. Or otherwise, the next one is I, me, and mine. These are the three things that are there in every individual living entity. So Brahma is praying that even though he wants to create as a duty given by the Lord, still he is praying for the Lord's mercy so that he doesn't get entangled in this material world as the creator. Then he says, I pray that in course of my material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of the Vedic hymns. Then the Lord saw that Brahma was so anxious about the planning and the construction that the Lord replied, O Brahma, be neither depressed nor anxious. What you are begging has already been granted before. That means the Lord already granted his mercy to Brahma so that Brahma doesn't get entangled into this material world. Similarly, if what we are doing even material duties, if we pray to the Lord will make arrangements in such a way that we don't get attached to the results. Lord Himself says in Bhagavad Gita, one should perform his duty, but not get attached to the results of his activities by which one gets bound in this material world. And further, the Lord says, because your mind is fixed on me, even though you will be engaged in generating various progeny, the various modes of passion and will not encroach upon you. So the point is that because Brahma was fixed with his mind on the Lord, he was able to become free from the modes of material nature. So similarly, for us also, by performing our duty, if we are able to focus our mind on the Lord, then we will not be able to entangle ourselves in the process of performing our duty. But in Kali Yuga, the thing is that the age is degraded so much. Day after day, science brings something or other by which we already become attached to any other thing. For example, if you see the mobile, the first thing that anyone would like to do when he wakes up in the morning is see the mobile, see what is the message or anybody has got. To the extent that one is glued to that mobile up to the time that he goes to bed. Only thing one might not see is when he is asleep, that too if he is fast asleep. Otherwise, mobile is also a source of disturbance even of our sleep or even while eating. So this is how the age has brought so much of disturbance that one finds difficult to control. This is what is called material nature. And these things keep us bind. It is like it is said that when you throw a stick in a river with a strong current, the stick has to flow with the current, but it does not flow against the current. Similarly, we are all entangled in this current of material nature, and we can't flow against the current. But devotional service is one by which one can become even freely detached from all the attachment that is there in this material world. Another important point that is mentioned is about the Vedas. Mother Devahuti says that all the Vedas are sustained in you only at the time of dissolution. So when the Lord creates, these Vedas are emanations from the Lord. When he creates, the Vedas also come out from him. And at the time of dissolution, when the whole material world is bound up in him, the Vedas are also bound up in him. So in other words, Vedas are Vedic knowledge, which are eternal in nature. They don't have destruction. They don't have annihilation. So Vedas contain a lot of branches of knowledge like sociology, politics, medicine, and devotional service also. And all these and other branches of knowledge are all described in the Vedas. But as far as spiritual knowledge is concerned, particularly in the Kali Yuga, Srimad Bhagavatam is considered to be the essence of the all the Vedas that are there. It's considered to be the ripened fruit of the desire-fulfilling tree of Vedas. So a tree is honored by the type of fruits that come out from it. Similarly, for example, a mango tree is considered very valuable. It produces the king of all fruits, that is the mango. So when the mango fruit ripens, then that fruit is very tasty. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam is considered to be the ripened fruit of this Vedic tree. Then Mother Devahuti addresses Lord Kapila as the Param Brahman or the Supreme Brahman. We are called Brahman or Spirit, and the Lord is the Supreme Spirit or the Supreme Brahman. Just like an illumination of a fire spreads all over, similarly, the energies of the Supreme Lord, Parabrahman, are spread all over the universe. So devotees who are able to control their senses and the mind by Lord's mercy can become free from the three modes of material nature, which is very difficult. The Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, Devi Esa Gunamai Mama Maya Duratya, that this material world consisting of the three modes of material nature is very difficult to overcome. But for one who has surrendered unto me, he can easily cross over this material ocean. And Mother Devahuti further admits that being a woman, she is not able to offer prayers properly. But she had a desire that the Lord should accept her prayers and be satisfied with it. So Shastras also explain that generally women being engaged in other activities are less inclined to spiritual activities. Of course, nowadays the situation has changed because nowadays we find men are more attached to material activities and results, and women take up to Krishna consciousness. So Mother Devahuti is praying to the Lord that please accept my prayers. I'm a less intelligent person. The point is that we should not look at that. We should try to understand the essence by meaning that she is humbling herself in front of the Lord, saying that I'm a less intelligent person. Please accept my prayers and be satisfied with it. The next point that is mentioned is that your meditation with like yoga process and all these things has not been possible even 5,000 years ago when Krishna recited Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Arjuna said that Chanchalahi Mana Krishna, this mind is very difficult to control. It's even difficult than the wind. So concentration of the mind is what is called samadhi or trance in the yogic platform. So when we say yoga, we try to reach this stage of samadhi by concentration of the mind, for which one has to go to a secluded place where there is no sound, where is no one else around, which creates a disturbance. But in Kali Yuga, it is not at all possible. Example is given like Vishwamitra was a great yogi, but he fell down from his meditation by just hearing the tinkling of the angle bells of Menaka. Similarly, Bharat Maharaj was in deep meditation in the bank of a river when he developed an attachment for a deer, and then he had to take the body of a deer. Another example is Shaubarya Muni. He was performing great tapasya underwater for many years, but he saw just two fish mating and he got carried away and he decided to get married. So these are all examples that are given in the Shastras to explain that controlling the mind and senses is very, very difficult. The other processes like Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, or may give liberation, but still all these processes cannot be performed without devotional service. Because if you perform Dhyana Yoga, that is meditation or yoga, etc., like I mentioned before in the beginning of the class, that one should know what should one should meditate upon. One should meditate on the four-handed form of the Lord situated in the heart. If this is not there, then that yoga process has no meaning at all. So that yoga, dhyana yoga also requires a little bit of bhakti yoga to understand whom to meditate upon. Similarly, if you see karma yoga, if somebody is offering results to someone, one should know whom to offer the result. That results are to be offered to Krishna, as he states in Bhagavad Gita himself. So all these karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, all are meant to be directed towards the Supreme Lord Krishna. Many times what happens is this: yogis, in the process of performing yoga, they may attain some mystic powers. But what happens is that when they get some mystic powers, they become attached to these mystic powers. These mystic powers like becoming lighter than the lightest, heavier than the heaviest, and so forth. But what happens is that when they attain these mystic powers, they become attached to it and they bound by that to gain popularity. So all other processes are such that which will somehow or the other entangle the living entity into this material world. There is a very nice example of how one time there was a great devotee doing Sri Chaitanya after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time. His name was Rasikananda. So there was a yogi who exhibited his flying power, and this Rasikananda was brushing his teeth with a neem tree. So one person came and told him that this person is flying and this person is flying, the yogi is flying, yogi is flying. But this Rasikananda did not even bother to hear him. Finally, when this person was determined to say that, no, see how he's flying. At some point, Rasikananda actually took this neem stick, threw it in the air, and he sat on it and he flew. The point is that even devotees who become pure devotees of the Lord can exhibit these yogic powers, but they are not interested in these yogic powers because that is not their goal. Their goal is to satisfy the Lord, for which they perform devotional service. Even devotional service, which is performed by devotees, they don't perform for the sake of satisfying themselves, but rather they are performed to satisfy the Supreme Lord. In the next sloka, it is mentioned as to how a level of realization of the Supreme Lord becomes evident to the extent that one withdraws his senses from the material activities. That means that by controlling the mind and our senses, we withdraw our mind from these activities, and by which one can realize the Lord. It cannot happen that one will have uncontrolled senses and mind. At the same time, he will try to focus on the Supreme Lord. It is like putting two legs on two boats and trying to cross the ocean. One of the boats will topple. So if one is not strong enough in performing devotional service, then what happens is that he performs devotional service, at the same time becomes attached to fruitive activities. One is thrown out of the process of devotional service, just like being thrown out of one boat. So one has to perform this devotional service also so powerfully that he becomes automatically detached. In fact, the more one focuses on devotional service to the Lord, anyone who has performed, been in the moment for years together, they will realize that they have developed a distaste against all the material activities. This is what happens when one performs devotional service. One does not have taste for any more material activities. So such souls become fixed on the spiritual platform. It is said this mind is like a parachute. It is effective when it is open. Similarly, when the mind is in the mode of acceptance, then it is open-minded. For example, mind is like a monkey. It jumps from one branch of a tree to another in no time. So, but if we keep the mind open to accept devotional service and then perform devotional service to satisfy the Lord, over a period of time, one will also develop an aversion to material activities in this world. And this mind can be conquered by engaging all the mind and the senses at the lotus feet of the Lord. Once the mind we are able to conquer, the senses will be engaged. That is why it is said, Sarvopadi Vinirmuktam Tatpar Rishikena Rishikesa Sevam Bhakti Ruchyate. By engaging all the senses in the senses of the Lord, for the satisfaction of the Lord, then what happens is that it becomes free from all the attachment to this material world. Rishikesha Sevanam. When these senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesha, or the master of the senses, then what happens is by bhakti, Sarvopadi Vinirmuktam Tatpatyam Rishikena Rishikesanam Bhakti Ruchyate. That is the perfection of all the senses. Another example that is given is that one should beat the mind with a shoe or a broomstick 100 times when you wake up. That means not exactly we take a shoe and beat up, but what happens is that if we think on beating our mind with a shoe, then what happens is we try to regulate the mind. But then again, it may not be practically possible. But when one engages in the services, devotional service, it automatically frees one from, or rather one does not have a taste for material activity. In the 9th sloka, there is an example of how she says that since the Lord is all perfect, his affection for his mother is also complete. So there is a quote in Ishopanishad which says that Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. The translation is, the personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself, because he is the complete whole. Even though so many complete units may emanate from him, he still remains the complete balance. It's a very nice sloka. The understanding is that the Lord is complete and perfect in all respects, and everything that emanates from the Lord is also completely perfect. And even though many emanations come out from the Supreme Lord, he still remains complete and perfect, and thus remains in complete balance. Then we come to sloka number 10, where some important points are mentioned, where the Lord says, my dear mother, the path of self-realization which I have already instructed to you is very easy. You can execute this system without difficulty, and by following it, you shall very soon be liberated even within your present body. So the point is that the emphasis on devotional service is mentioned in this particular sloka. that simply by following the rules and regulations of devotional service under the directions of a bona fide spiritual master, one can be liberated even in this material body. In all other yogic processes, one may not even realize that he is reaching a stage of perfection. But even in devotional service, one can realize that uh, one is becoming liberated even in this material body. That's what I mentioned. What is liberation? That will come to understand from this purport itself. Now, through other processes, one may perform the process, but he will not understand what is the progress he has made. But in devotional service, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sri Rupa Goswami mentions, Iha yasya harer dasye, there's a sloka, karmana manasa gira nikila swapi avastasu jivan muktasa uchyate. The translation is, one who engages in the transcendental service of the Lord in body, mind, and word is to be considered liberated in all conditions of material existence. So sometimes doubts might arise in the minds of a neophyte about whether or not the spiritual master is liberated. And sometimes the neophytes think whether the body, spiritual master looks identical to us. No, but one should not look at a spiritual master as a normal human being like us, but one who is his spiritual master can be identified by one who is always engaged in the transcendental loving service to the Lord. That's what the translation is. One who engages in the service of the Lord in body, mind, and word, manasa, vacha, karmana, is to be considered liberated in all conditions of material life. So sometimes a spiritual master may perform activities like any living entities like we do. Like, for example, he has got a material body. Spiritual master has got a material body like us. But his manasa, vancha, karma, his mind, words, and activities are always engaged in the service of the Lord. So that is why he's already liberated, even though he's having a material body. So in this sloka, there is a mention that one has to see the symptoms of the spiritual master. That is, Jivan Mukta means that even though one is in a material body, still because he has got a material body, there are some material necessities because it is material. But still one should be, it is to be understood that one is liberated. So what is this liberation, which is what is mentioned here in this purport? There is a quote given from the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, from the second canto. The translation says that the merging of the living entity along with the conditional, with his conditional tendency, with the mystic lying down of Mahavishnu is called binding of the cosmic manifestation. Liberation is the permanent situation of the form of living entity after he gives up the changeable gross and subtle material body. That means at the time of our death, we have to give up this material gross and subtle body because it changes. But liberation is that by which one is situated in his eternal constitutional living position. That is, our constitutional position is to be eternally servants of the Lord, which quotation is also given in this purport, which is a quote from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which says, Jivere Swarupa hoy, Krishnera Nityadasa, Krishnera Tatastha Shakti, Veda Veda Prakasha. That means the translation is, it is the living entity's constitutional position to be an eternal servant of Krishna because he is a marginal energy of Krishna and a manifestation simultaneously one and different from the Lord, like a molecular particle of sunshine or fire. Now here, Krishna has three varieties of energy. We'll understand this because it's a very important point. Our constitutional position of the living being, that is the soul, is to be eternal servant of Krishna. Now this soul is in the marginal energy of Krishna because being situated in a material body like this, there is a tendency, by constitution it is spiritual in nature, but by tendency of being situated in a material body, we have a tendency to act in material activities and be bound by it. So that is why it is called marginal. But by engaging oneself in 100% engaging the service of the Lord, one is bound to be liberated. That is, he will be liberated by his activities of material nature and be situated in devotional service only. So, example is given about a sunshine, a small particle of sunshine. It has got the same qualities of the sun itself, but the sunshine is not the complete sun itself. Sun is bright and it is glowing very powerfully. The sunshine, a small molecule part of the sunshine has got the same quality, but it is not the complete sunshine which emanates from the sun. So, we, the living entities, the spirit soul inside, has the same quality as the Supreme Lord itself, being spiritual in nature. So we have that nature, but because the jiva or the living entity is a minute spark, which is a part and parcel of the supreme whole, there is a tendency for us. Uh, uh, for example, the example is spark. When it is in front of a big flame, one can see it, but the spark, when it comes out of the flame, immediately it is exhausted. The spark is not seen anymore. Similarly, the soul which is within us is a minute part and parcel of the supreme whole. And when it is separated from the Lord, that is called the fall down of the situation of falling down from this material world. So, how to revive that connection is what is called the link yoga or the linking process, by which we connect back to the Supreme Lord. That means we connect through this material body, the soul, to the super soul or the Supreme Lord. And these various processes are given, by which Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all these yogic processes are processes by which we connect our soul to the super soul, and we are linked to it eternally, which is our original constitutional position, by which we are situated as eternally servants of the Lord. So all these processes by which we culminate, by which we have become eternally situated as servant of the Lord. Ultimately, our point is that we were eternally servants. We have to be eternally servants only. And these processes are there to give us the revival of the original connection which is lost. But what happens is that in the other processes, one does not realize, that is a basic important understanding in this sloka today. One will not realize that he is being liberated. But Bhakti Yoga is such that even in one's own material body, one will realize that he has developed a detachment from all material activities, and he is reaching a state of perfection, and he is being situated. After all these processes that we practice, even after practicing devotional service, what should be the end goal? We should be engaged in devotional service of the Lord. What is the devotional services of the Lord? We can be engaged in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So that we are always engaged in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. In Kali Yuga, there is no other process which is easy other than chanting and hearing the names of the Lord. And when we constantly hear and chant the glories of the Lord, then what happens is that we always think of the Lord, which is called Vishnu Smaranam. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. So when we chant and hear always constantly, then we reach the stage of always thinking of Krishna, remembering him always. We always remember the Lord. And when we remember the Lord, then what happens is we are situated in one of the rasas or one of the mellows of serving the Lord. That is Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, etc. Jiva by nature has got a permanent relationship with the Supreme Lord. That is Shantarasa. Many devotees worship the Lord in neutrality or worship the Lord with awe and reverence. That is called Shantarasa. Then the next is Dasyarasa. One considers the Lord, one considers himself as a servant of the Lord. He serves the Lord in the mood of a servant. Then another one is the Sakya Rasa. Devotees have developed a taste of worshipping the Lord in the form of friendship. Like, for example, the cowherd boys, they all serve the Lord in the mood of friendship. Shantarasa, Dasyarasa, Sakyarasa, Vatsalyarasa. Some worship the Lord in the mood of Vatsalya, that is a motherly parental affection. For example, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, Devaki and Vasudeva. All these are examples of how the devotees worship the Lord in the mood of a parent. And then finally, Madhurya Rasa, that is, devotees worship the Lord as a Paramar. Uh, uh, this could be even otherwise in a refined form of worshipping, serving the Lord in the mood of a wife. Rukmini served the Lord in the mood of a wife. Radharani serves the Lord as a paramar. So these are all examples of devotees worshipping the Lord in various mellows. So by constantly chanting and glories of we all have original constitutional position, which we don't know. But gradually, by the guidance of instruction, by following the instructions of a spiritual master, that is one of the most important point in this sloka. By following strictly the instructions of a spiritual master, one is guided to perform devotional service constantly. And when one becomes purified completely, then he realizes his original position. Whatever he was in, whatever service he was doing, eternally in the spiritual abode, the living entity is guided back to that original position. And one can realize this in this Bhakti Yoga very clearly by practice, that he is reaching a stage of perfection. That one is able to reach progress gradually is being realized very easily by the process of devotional service. Whereas in other stages, other processes of yoga practice, one need not reach that stage. So that is what is called liberation, that is being situated in one's own constitutional position. One must understand whether or not he is liberated by his activities in devotional service, not by any other service or any other symptom. That means when one is performing devotional service, one can realize that he is being liberated by these activities, not by external exhibition of symptoms, but internally one should feel, yes, his attachment to Krishna. Externally, one might become detached from many material things, but internally, one must develop that attachment to Krishna and attachment to devotional service. And when one is engaged all the time, uh, fully engaged in devotional service, that is the stage of liberation. Even when one has his material body, he can realize that he is being liberated in this material body from material entanglement. And that best process is nothing but devotional service. So with this, I conclude the class for the day. Next couple of minutes, I can take some questions, comments, if any of you have.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandar Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandar Pranam.
Prabhu, very wonderful class, Prabhu. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, like we have to serve Krishna. So yes, serving Krishna is, as you said, in different rasas, we can serve Krishna. Yes. But normally, see, serving Krishna means serving somebody means he should be physically present. So when Krishna is not present mentally, how do we serve him? Please, will you help me?
Okay. When one becomes fixed in devotional service by serving a spiritual master, serving the spiritual master and serving his instructions are one and the same. Spiritual master is not a conditioned living entity like us. So when one takes the instructions of the spiritual master, as one gradually becomes free from all inebrities in this material world. So because we cannot see Krishna in his original spiritual form, Krishna sends a representative in the form of a spiritual master. The 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a mention that this spiritual master is none other than external manifestation of the Paramatma feature of the Lord. The Lord is situated in our heart as Paramatma. So when the Lord sees that, the Lord knows all our mind thoughts, our activity, actions, everything the Lord can see. So when the Lord sees that a sincere living entity is looking for a spiritual understanding and progress, the Lord manifests himself as a spiritual master. That's why it is called spiritual master is an external manifestation of the Paramatma feature of the Lord. At that time, the Lord manifests as a spiritual master, and the spiritual master gives instructions to the disciples. And when the disciple abides by the instructions of the spiritual master does not give instructions to entangle a living entity in this material world, but rather gives instructions to free the living entity from this material world. So when one abides by the instructions of a spiritual master, that leads one to the perfection of spiritual life, and then one automatically becomes liberated. So many examples are there even in our Sampradaya of our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, like how he took the instructions of his spiritual master Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, and he printed all the books in English and spread the knowledge all throughout the world. So the spiritual master who generally comes to guide us are not normal living entities like us. They are sent by the Lord himself, and they are liberated living entities who come from the spiritual world to deliver conditioned souls like us. So when we abide by their instructions, automatically it is following their instructions, following Krishna's instructions. It becomes easier for us. Instead of trying to see Krishna, we have our spiritual master in mind. That is good enough to, by serving the spiritual master, one serves Krishna automatically. Is it clear, Prabhu?
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Yeah. And so we have to serve as the instructions of the spiritual master. We have to serve. When we follow the instructions, and accordingly we are serving
We are
Krishna.
serving Krishna. We are serving
Yes,
Krishna.
yes, 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 Prabhuji. Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhu.
you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Anybody else?
Wonderful session, Prabhuji. You told about the yoga process, everything related to Krishna consciousness. Nice, enlightening session.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada